A single troll just shook up Tariq Nasheed's Twitter space, but what happens next exposes drama, controversy, and secrets you won't believe. Stay tuned. Tariq Nasheed is most active on X, though he maintains a presence on Instagram and YouTube. While he does post occasionally to those platforms, the bulk of his work lives on X. He frequently hosts Twitter Spaces, interactive audio sessions where listeners can join in and contribute to discussions. These live conversations often form the backbone of his content, which he later repurposes. Sometimes he uploads the entire session to YouTube, other times he clips key moments for the platform. YouTube, therefore, primarily showcases content that originated on X, even though he may go live on YouTube once a week. As is common with live discussions online, trolls often make appearances in his Twitter Spaces. One frequent provocateur goes by the name T.S. Giselle, a transgender individual whose participation is largely disruptive. Nasheed usually allows these people to speak only briefly, seconds or a minute at most, before removing them from the conversation. Despite this, T.S. Giselle has become a figure of controversy. The situation escalated when a member of the Hebrew Israelite community attempted to leverage T.S. Giselle to spread a false rumor. This person claimed that T.S. Giselle held some official position within FBA, a claim that was entirely baseless. Observing this, Nasheed quickly grew suspicious, questioning whether the individual orchestrating the story was acting in bad faith or even as an undercover agent. He recognized that spreading such absurd claims is classic Fed-like behavior, manipulating public narratives through deception. T.S. Giselle, in reality, is just another online troll. They make outrageous claims that few people take seriously. Yet some individuals ran with the idea that T.S. Giselle was a prominent figure in FBA, reaching out to Nasheed to ask him about it. The questions themselves were so obviously trollish that Nasheed could see the underlying motive immediately. They weren't seeking information. They wanted to provoke a reaction that could then be misrepresented publicly. Ultimately, Nasheed recognized the manipulation and refused to dignify the claim with a serious response. He understood the pattern: bad faith actors trying to frame public narratives by eliciting statements they could twist. In this case, the Hebrew Israelite was attempting exactly that, using T.S. Giselle as a pawn in a manufactured story. Nasheed's approach was simple but effective: remain aware, engage selectively, and avoid giving trolls the attention they crave.
I'll be real brief, man, and maybe I'll put the video up. Tariq Nasheed is apparently subliminally talking about me because he's too vagina to say my name directly. So I'm the person that he's trying to call COINTELPRO XYZ because I text and asked him if a man pretending to be a woman that's calling himself the queen of the FBA was something that they represented. And then he gets mad at me for asking him, and I'm only asking him because he's the quote-unquote head, especially on Twitter Spaces. So I figure I go to the source because we had a relationship, and instead of him respecting it, he calls me agent, talks about me subliminally. That don't really matter. What's diabolical, though, is that straight men who's supposed to be about foundational black people would allow a gay man to represent himself as the queen of your so-called movement. What's worse, asking if it's true, or letting some gay man troll you to being?
The individual in question is Captain Tariq, sometimes referred to simply as Cap. He first came onto Tariq Nasheed's radar through debates on Set TV. Tariq is a member of the ISUP under General Yana, the organization's commanding leader, and hails from the East Coast. Within the pro-black, consciousness-focused community, he's widely recognized. Numbers online may not fully reflect his visibility. Anyone active in these circles has likely encountered him at some point. Tariq Nasheed had previously met Tariq, which explains why he had direct contact with him regarding the matter at hand. The discussion centers on a peculiar claim involving T.S. Giselle, who is introducing herself to Charleston White as the First Lady of FBA. Tariq brought this to Nasheed's attention and provided what he considered proof of the situation. Nasheed's response was measured. He identified the tactic immediately, a classic Fed-style maneuver. When someone frames a question like, "Is it true this troll is the First Lady of FBA?" it's designed to embed a falsehood within the inquiry itself. No matter how you answer, yes or no, you risk repeating the lie. The goal of such a question is to manipulate public perception, creating the appearance of legitimacy for a fabricated claim. Nasheed recognized it for what it was, a troll attempt that failed because the absurdity was too obvious. Although Nasheed did not name Tariq directly, it's clear from context who he meant. The conflict revolves around a Hebrew Israelite, likely an ISUP member, and the video documenting this is titled Conscious Costume Cointail Pro. The thumbnail shows someone dressed as a Hebrew Israelite, hinting at ISUP affiliation, something Tariq himself has been seen wearing in past interviews and appearances. Ultimately, Nasheed viewed Tariq's insistence on involving him in this minor controversy as petty. The situation involved T.S. Giselle, a transgender troll whose antics were outside of Nasheed's control. Yet Tariq felt it was significant enough to raise the issue, highlighting a disconnect between what is worth public attention and what is merely a distraction.
Man could never troll the Israelite movement, and we accept it, and we think it's funny, and we think it's cute. We would never do that. But the FBA apparently will let a gay man or a trans man troll.
The underlying motivation, according to Captain Tariq himself, appears straightforward, or at least that's the way he has presented it in conversations and interviews. I've had the opportunity to speak with him directly on several occasions, and while we don't always agree on every point, there is a mutual respect that exists. Tariq is not someone who speaks casually or without thought. His words carry the weight of someone who has lived within a structured community, has observed patterns of behavior, and approaches issues from a principled standpoint. My critiques, in general, are not aimed at him personally, but rather at certain individuals within the Hebrew Israelite movement, particularly those who return to Africa and engage in questionable or exploitative practices. These practices often involve financial manipulation, scams, or actions that exploit the goodwill of local communities under the guise of cultural or spiritual legitimacy. This is a problem I have encountered with a small subset of Hebrew Israelites who, after traveling abroad, return with intentions that do not align with the ethical standards one might expect. Importantly, this is not a blanket criticism of the entire movement. The ISUP community, of which Tariq is a member, has consistently demonstrated integrity in its principles and operations. In my experience, ISUP members are committed to education, discipline, and community service, which contrasts with the behaviors of the few bad actors I've observed elsewhere. Tariq himself embodies that integrity. He comes across as a solid, stand-up figure, someone who is intentional about his words and actions, someone who commands respect not through force or intimidation but through consistency and the respect he shows to those around him. The primary issue that Tariq has raised revolves around T.S. Giselle, a transgender individual who intermittently joins Tariq Nasheed's Twitter Spaces. These spaces are live audio conversations where participants can join in and interact with the host. It's a highly public platform that allows for direct engagement, debate, and sometimes provocation. T.S. Giselle, in this context, has become somewhat of a provocateur or a troll in online terminology. The purpose of their participation seems less about meaningful engagement and more about disruption or attention-seeking behavior. In the context of these discussions, T.S. Giselle's presence creates a situation that some consider contentious, while others, including Nasheed, treat it as part of the normal chaos of online interaction. Tariq Nasheed, of course, is well known for his online persona, his wit, his sharp sense of humor, and his ability to entertain an audience while navigating contentious topics. He's arguably one of the most skilled online content creators when it comes to blending education, humor, and cultural commentary. In his Twitter Spaces, it's not unusual for him to engage in what could be described as light roasting of participants, meaning he playfully mocks, teases, or critiques people in a way that is humorous but pointed. His targets can be anyone, regardless of race, gender, or background. Whether the participant is a transgender individual, a white supremacist, a critic, or someone from the African diaspora, Nasheed's method is consistent. He allows them to speak briefly, often poking fun at them, before eventually removing disruptive participants from the conversation. This is a controlled form of engagement. It entertains, It tests ideas, and it maintains the boundaries of the discussion. It is a signature approach that Nasheed has developed over years of participating in online discourse. From Tariq's perspective, the presence of T.S. Giselle within these spaces is problematic. He has communicated that within the Hebrew Israelite community, behavior of this nature would simply not be tolerated. Their communities are built on strict codes of conduct, discipline, and accountability. Any individual who attempted to disrupt the community, challenge its authority, or misrepresent its values would be swiftly addressed. In other words, trolls like T.S. Giselle are not given a platform or an opportunity to undermine the discourse in their spaces. To Tariq, observing such behavior, even in a context outside his immediate control, raises questions about the boundaries, values, and credibility of those who host these discussions. This concern is rooted not in personal animosity toward Nasheed, but in a philosophical and ethical framework that Tariq and others within the ISUP community adhere to. In their view, leaders must maintain authority and moral credibility, not just through what they say, but through what they allow to occur in their spaces. To allow someone disruptive, or someone perceived as morally or socially incongruent with the community's values, to engage in a prominent, visible forum could be interpreted as a failure to uphold standards. For Tariq, this is not simply about the behavior of one individual. It is about the larger principle of how communities regulate themselves, maintain their integrity, and signal to their members what behaviors are acceptable. At the same time, it is important to contextualize the nature of online spaces today. Trolls, provocateurs, and disruptive figures are a ubiquitous reality across social media platforms. They are not constrained by geography, ideology, or social norms. Individuals like T.S. Giselle can create multiple accounts, adopt personas, and insert themselves into discussions purely to elicit reactions. Anyone who has participated in online discourse at scale, especially high-visibility figures like Nasheed, understands that these interactions are inevitable. One cannot fully control who enters the conversation, and, in many ways, the most effective strategy is often to manage the engagement with a combination of humor, boundaries, and selective moderation. Nasheed's approach reflects this understanding. By allowing brief engagement followed by a controlled exit from the conversation, he both maintains the integrity of his space and entertains the audience, while simultaneously neutralizing the disruptive potential of the troll. From Tariq's perspective, however, the situation represents a tension between different cultural frameworks of authority and morality. The Hebrew Israelite community operates under a highly structured code. They regulate behavior internally, enforce moral discipline, and hold members accountable to communal standards. In contrast, the digital realm of Twitter Spaces operates under a far looser system of governance. Moderation exists, but the audience is vast, anonymous, and unpredictable. Observing a disruptive figure entering a high-profile conversation and being allowed to participate, even briefly, can appear to contradict the principles that Tariq values so deeply. This is less about personal criticism of Nasheed and more about a reflection of different approaches to leadership, accountability, and community management. It is also worth noting that Tariq's concerns touch upon broader questions about perception and representation. Within any community, leaders and public figures are often judged not only by their actions, but also by what they allow to occur under their watch. For Tariq, the presence of T.S. Giselle could be interpreted as a challenge to Nasheed's credibility, an opportunity to highlight the differences in moral standards between the Hebrew Israelite community and Nasheed's digital platform. By drawing attention to this situation, Tariq may have been attempting to make a larger point about ethics, accountability, and the symbolic weight of leadership. Ultimately, this episode illustrates the intersection of online culture, community ethics, and public perception. It highlights the challenges that arise when structured, disciplined communities engage with unregulated, chaotic digital spaces. For Tariq, the issue is principled. It is about maintaining standards, ensuring accountability, and modeling moral authority. For Nasheed, the issue is pragmatic. It is about managing interaction, maintaining entertainment value, and navigating the realities of the internet. The clash is not personal, but structural, revealing the differing philosophies and operational norms between traditional community frameworks and modern digital engagement. Tazaraq's concern, then, is less about the individual, T.S. Giselle, than it is about the principle of what it means to host, lead, and represent a community. The tension arises because these two frameworks, traditional communal discipline versus modern online moderation, operate under different assumptions. What is acceptable, manageable, or entertaining in one system may appear irresponsible or lax in another. Recognizing this helps contextualize Tazaraq's reaction. It is not simply oversensitivity, but a reflection of a deeply held belief in ethical oversight and community integrity. In conclusion, the situation underscores a broader conversation about leadership in the digital age, the inevitability of trolling and disruption, and the contrasting expectations between structured communities and public platforms. Tazaraq's reaction highlights the values of accountability, principle, and discipline that define the Hebrew Israelite community. Nasheed's response, on the other hand, exemplifies the adaptability, humor, and pragmatic moderation required to manage a complex, diverse, and unpredictable online audience. Both perspectives illuminate different aspects of authority and credibility, offering a valuable lens through which to examine how communities navigate the challenges of leadership, engagement, and representation in the modern era. From Tazaraq's perspective, Nasheed allowing T.S. Giselle to participate, even briefly, posed a challenge to his credibility within #FBA. He framed it as a moral or hierarchical discrepancy. How could someone claim leadership or influence if they permitted a troll, particularly a transgender one, to represent them? Essentially, Tazaraq was positioning his sect as morally superior because, in their view, they would not allow such behavior. I find this reasoning hard to justify publicly. Trolls are a fact of online life. Anyone active online, including myself, has faced fabricated accounts and AI-generated fakes. You can't control who trolls you, nor is it always productive to try. Tazaraq's decision to message Nasheed about it and then take it public seems disproportionate. It turns a minor, easily dismissible trolling incident into a matter of public scrutiny. It's unclear whether Tazaraq acted out of genuine concern, a sense of moral duty, or perhaps to elevate his community's perceived authority. Regardless, the escalation could have been avoided with a simple clarification: this is just a troll. Nasheed likely deemed it unworthy of a response, and that choice unintentionally fueled the situation. In the end, this episode highlights a deeper clash of online cultures and perspectives, one that has become increasingly common in today's digital age. On one side, you have individuals like Captain Tazaraq, who operate from a framework built on structure, principle, and long-established communal ethics. On the other side, you have a dynamic like Tariq Nasheed's Twitter Spaces, which exist in a much more chaotic, open-ended environment. Here, the rules of engagement are informal, the participants are unpredictable, and the boundaries are largely self-enforced rather than codified. When these two worlds intersect, friction is inevitable. Tazaraq's reaction to T.S. Giselle's participation can be seen as an expression of his community's moral code and a reflection of the values he believes should guide public discourse. From his perspective, allowing a figure that he perceives as disruptive, even temporarily, could undermine authority, erode credibility, and implicitly send the wrong message to those observing the interaction. However, it's important to consider the nature of online trolling and the role it plays in contemporary social media spaces. Trolls are not a new phenomenon. They are as old as public discourse itself, but the internet has amplified their reach and impact exponentially. Online trolls are not bound by geography, personal consequence, or even accountability in the traditional sense. They appear in streams, comment sections, forums, and social media feeds, often creating chaos for the sake of attention, amusement, or ideological provocation. In spaces like Nasheed's Twitter broadcasts, trolls become part of the environment, a variable that hosts must anticipate, manage, and, in some cases, humorously defuse. To engage seriously with every provocation is an impossible task. The most effective approach is often selective moderation, measured engagement, or outright dismissal. This is precisely what Nasheed does. He allows brief interaction, adds humor, establishes boundaries through witty commentary, and then removes the participant when necessary. This approach balances entertainment with control, demonstrating a mastery of the digital environment that is fundamentally different from the structure Tariq is accustomed to. From a broader perspective, the situation also underscores how digital spaces can magnify minor provocations into perceived crises. A single troll, given attention, either through messaging, public commentary, or a reaction, can escalate into a story that draws external scrutiny. It's a pattern that repeats across platforms every day. An online argument, joke, or misunderstanding can spiral into a viral narrative, often disproportionate to the original action. In this case, Tariq's decision to bring T.S. Giselle into the public conversation, even with principled intentions, inadvertently amplified what was originally a minor, transient disruption. Whereas in a traditional, close-knit community, such behavior might be swiftly addressed internally and forgotten, the digital environment thrives on visibility, engagement, and replication. Every interaction has the potential to become public, permanent, and widely dissected. It's also worth considering the human dimension in all of this. People respond differently to provocations based on their personal values, cultural background, and understanding of authority. For Tariq, the presence of a troll may have represented a breach of moral or social standards, something unacceptable in the framework he operates within. For Nasheed, the same interaction is part of the everyday ebb and flow of online discourse, navigable through humor, boundaries, and moderation. Neither perspective is inherently wrong. They simply reflect different expectations of leadership, accountability, and engagement. This divergence illustrates the complexity of digital interactions in a multicultural, multi-generational, and highly connected world. It shows that what may appear trivial to one person can carry symbolic weight to another, and that understanding these differences is essential for interpreting online events fairly. Ultimately, this episode serves as a cautionary tale about the dynamics of digital spaces. Minor provocations, trolls, disruptive comments, misleading questions often gain significance only when individuals assign them weight. Ignoring the provocation, addressing it with clarity, or controlling it with discretion are all valid strategies, depending on one's goals and the norms of the environment. In this case, Nasheed's choice not to respond extensively reflects a deliberate strategy. By refusing to elevate the troll, he maintains control over the narrative, preserves his credibility, and prevents unnecessary escalation. Tariq's decision to publicize the matter, by contrast, highlights how intentions, principles, and interpretations of authority can influence behavior in ways that magnify relatively minor events. Personally, I would not have taken the bait, choosing instead to manage the situation quietly and maintain focus on the broader mission or discourse. But this does not negate the validity of Tariq's perspective. Different frameworks lead to different approaches, and understanding the motivations and values behind actions is essential to interpreting events accurately. The key takeaway is that online engagement is not just about content. It is about context, interpretation, and the complex interplay between personal principles and digital dynamics. Minor conflicts, left unchecked, can become amplified when they intersect with human pride, community values, or the public eye. Recognizing this can help individuals navigate online spaces more thoughtfully, with an awareness of both the power and the limitations of attention in digital culture. At the end of the day, this situation reminds us of the necessity for discernment, patience, and contextual understanding in the digital age. Not every disruption warrants escalation, and not every provocation reflects an existential threat. Sometimes, the wisest response is to observe, maintain one's principles, and act selectively, addressing issues that genuinely matter while allowing trivial disturbances to fade into the background. It is a lesson not just for leaders and influencers, but for anyone participating in online communities, where visibility, perception, and narrative control are constantly in flux. That's the story as I see it, sharing the nuances behind the headlines, the subtle tensions between different cultural frameworks, and the lessons that arise when online worlds collide with structured communal values. Appreciate the support, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more in-depth explorations of these fascinating digital interactions.